You are listening to the Law Enforcement Pirate Radio Network. Radio Free Larry presiding.
You can run, but you can't hide.
Radio Free Larry.
All right, here we go again. All right, here we go again. All right, here we go again. It's another very beautiful day out there, but I'm still trying to get a handle on whatever's causing my throat to be raw. I don't think it's completely just the allergens. I think it's a combination of where I'm staying and the allergens. In other words, if I had like a hard floor, whether it's linoleum or wood or whatever, and I had less, in a newer building maybe, and less rug and all that, I think I'd be better off. I think there's probably mold in here. It had, and this is probably where it comes from, it had a regular heating system where it was duct work. Well, the ducts are now just sitting vacant, and they put in a different system that's on the wall. And the other day I sealed it real well so that pollen in the water doesn't come in when it rains or when it's windy. The pipe chase leading in was not, well, actually it was caulked at one time lightly, and it was dry rotted, so I used some silicone to get it nice and airtight. So I was realizing that when it was windy, I was getting worse, and I couldn't figure it out. And actually, if you know anything about allergens, when you're outside, it's generally better than inside, unless you take your clothes off and wash it real quick, which is what we're doing for COVID-19, I imagine, to a certain degree. So it is what it is. I just started back on the Flonase, and I'm already better. I'm just not sure how better I'm going to be, and it might be just a matter of moving out of this particular apartment. But as you notice, I'm opening back up a little bit more. I'm starting to pop the hatch on my cave here, and I'm moving within the community. So I'm going to dedicate this to Roger Stone. See, Roger, what you don't get is the same devils that got Nixon by cursing him and most likely surreptitiously drugging him and psychologically operating him using psychological warfare and psychological torture methods to manipulate him are the same things and people and progeny that are doing you. Again, Satan. They're wired hard to Satan. You have to realize that you are being used. You're being used to manipulate the administration into not eradicating the deep state and to kind of only go after what was created to manipulate the administration. Remember, I told you Barr is most likely, or I guess, I think I went back and forth between most likely. I'm trying to be as honest as I can. I'm trying to remember what I said. I think it was that I said he's most likely, and then I said he could be, and maybe said most likely, and then I said could be. So I was back and forth, but he definitely could be, and most likely is somebody who's going to manipulate the end part of the entire contract. It means he's an in. Even if he prosecutes a couple agents, and we're not there yet, no matter what's being said, because I would send information to Chuck Callisto that I was going to indict somebody and charge them if I wanted that propaganda operation out there. So the reality is, I said Barr, I didn't even say Barr. I said be careful for, even before Barr showed up, I said be careful for somebody who's going to come in as a fixer and fix it for you, because it's most likely a deep stater that's going to undo what they did to block you from actually doing what you're supposed to do, and that's eradicating the deep state as it is. That's why they try to make it, I know the president's just being advised in that direction, but make it only about the president, because if we get too deep right now, this, that, and the other thing, but that's all a lie. You're being dumbed down, you're being harnessed, and, Barr is the horse trainer. And he's going to get you to do what they wanted you to do day one. And what that's going to do in the end is nobody's going to fight them, because why spend 8 years fighting them when they make you be a wimp in the end anyway? And they call that cucking. They're busy cucking the president and his family. So, Roger, you're being used as a pawn, I guess, per se. Your case is using up the president's resolve to demolish the deep state. He has to focus on you and all those other cases before he can get anything else done, and most likely by the time he gets around to it, who knows if Earth is even here at that point. However, it's not highly likely that anything's going to happen. Now, again, if a few people are charged, it still doesn't mean anything. Because remember, what are we actually talking about? What is the deep state? It's what I say it is. It's a very immense organization that has murdered a multitude of U.S. citizens using various means and methods, sometimes under the color of law and other times outside the color of law. However, they are it. Without them, without these government people, the private sector people would never be doing it without going to prison. And many of them would be looking at the death penalty. So again, they're probably trying to figure out how to keep Roger's case going, forcing the president to pardon him, using up, another marker where, at what point does the president feel comfortable again doing something else? Again, it's psychological warfare, psychological manipulation, and the president has been psychologically tortured, but when you're a billionaire president, it has a lot less effect than when you're a Deputy U.S. Marshal retiree or even a Roger Stone. And that's what's happening to you, Roger. You're being psychologically manipulated and tortured through the whole thing. Flynn also, and I did say Flynn should have got a new attorney from day one, as soon as day one of the plea. As soon as he suggested to plead guilty, I said, you need a new attorney. Those people don't have a case. It's all corrupt. So, Roger, your case is going the direction it's going because of what we used to call communism. But now they're calling it patriotism. Was that what Obama and all them were calling the deep state back then? And it's not politics. There's Republican Party people that are doing Roger too. Why? Because Roger was in the way. They wanted the position that Roger was holding next to the president. You see, they're going to advise the president who's acceptable and who's not. And if you watch, the president kind of receives some bad advice on who to bring in and who not to bring in. And I said, don't get rid of Flynn. Don't get rid of Flynn. And then all of a sudden, Sessions, I'm out of here. I can't take this anymore. I want to recuse. I don't know what that was about, but I'll tell you right now, Sessions was so wrong. It almost looks like it was a setup between him and Rosenstein back from before the president was in. I mean, that was just too quick. Now, he may have received some sort of ultimatum. Again, remember, people say things with veiled communication. Sessions might have known if he recused that they would let him go. And of course, there was nothing to prosecute Sessions on, I'm sure, except for a senator, there's plenty to prosecute. Just generally, a senator, if the FBI wanted to railroad a senator, they can railroad any senator on earth. That's just the way it is. And they make that known. Why? Because they're extorting people. That's what they do. The DEA does it. The CIA does it. The marshals. Everybody's an extortionist in government. And they call it color of law. Well, that's why this is all happening around us. Governments, federal, state, and local, have gone dirty. And now it's going crazy again. Well, I told you for years, get away from me to start. And I told you a bunch of other things. But God's shutting my mouth. I can't even make arguments to protect you all anymore. Now, you see, if you speak to the people that are operating, well, it's working because we didn't want them to support law enforcement because we want them to look like an anti-law enforcement person because that's what they do. But quite frankly, you have to become a devil, demon, antichrist, witch, and sorcerer for God to tell me not to do it. And I mean, it has to be at a certain level. And we're there. So again, Roger, you're fighting the devils, demons, antichrists, witches, and sorcerers. That's what happened to your life. That's why there's a little bit of dirt back there they can use. Because in the 90s, they were attacking us with psychological warfare experts that weren't allowed to operate within the United States. That's why Woolsey went after Flynn. He's part of what murdered or tried to murder me and did murder Jonathan Luna. Woolsey was a psychological operator, a criminal psychological operator working Flynn over for that machine that McCabe and Comey were part of. But yet it goes back to Mueller, goes back, I don't know about Louis Freeh. I just can't tell you whether he was a good guy or not. I haven't met too many good people in the FBI. But there's none good, no, not one. And we know that from the Bible. So again, Roger, your entire thing that's going on there is not about you, although it is about you. Because they hate you, you became the pawn, but the opportunity to hate you existed not because of you. Which means you were expedient in a non-expedient way when we see where this thing actually went for them. However, you were the one that they could use to manipulate all this. And then they knew they had dirt on you from the 90s or something. So again, I've said this before, they're so unprofessional, it's disgusting. They leak salacious information about people. But first, you have to understand that them and the CIA cronies are attempting to make you have salacious information, to cause that salacious thing to exist in your life. So you were psychologically operated in the 90s. A lot of us were. The CIA was run amok. You know that girl that lost Bob Levinson? She was just one of many that had her own program going, but yet there's something higher that was overseeing all of it. To call it rogues minimizes it so bad because it's a criminal enterprise. Not merely rogue, it's a criminal enterprise. It's a murderous, violent criminal enterprise. And that's what caused Roger's life to get weird for a while. And it's hard to get back after they do that, but he finally got back and that he repented. But I'll tell you this, Roger, it's not your sin to bear, I don't believe. I mean, you're more powerful than I am in a physical way here. So you might be living your life, but I believe it was all manipulation. I believe you were a spiritually blind person that didn't see where you needed to be because people were both physically, or all three, should I say, physically, psychologically, and spiritually manipulating you. You were possessed into that life. And that's why they come around me still and probably come around you at times, whether you see them or not, because maybe you don't see them. But that's because they're trying to trigger you into all that base wiring they used in the 90s against you. Again, the CIA is a very dirty thing, and the FBI's dirty birdie with them in many ways, quite frankly. So again, Roger, it's about you, but it's not about you. It's about them and their criminal ways. And the only reason you were used is because you were in the right place at the right time. But for them, it's a double blessing because they hate you. But Jesus said, Rabbi Jesus Emmanuel Christ, Ben David, son of David, Ben Elohim, son of God, said, of course they'll hate you. They hated me before you. And they said, well, isn't Roger a sinner? Well, yes, Jesus knew Roger was a sinner. That's why he came to earth to help Roger, as well as everyone else is a sinner, and that's everybody else as far as I know. And of course, you can watch Jesus sin in the Bible. And you can watch Jesus commit an abomination. He caused strife. That's an abomination before the Lord our God. But guess what it meant? That Rabbi Jesus himself was not manifesting his heart on earth. God looked at his heart. His heart was clean, therefore he was sinless. So again, the illusion that they create outside is nothing to do with who you are inside. And that's why they hate you, because who you are inside. Well, praise God in all that you do. Praise God.
You are listening to the Law Enforcement Pirate Radio Network. Radio Free Larry presiding.
You can run, but you can't hide.